June and Jennifer Gibbons, also known as the Silent Twins, refused to communicate with anyone other than each other. In 1993, Jennifer died under mysterious circumstances. June's response: "I am free at last." June and Jennifer Gibbons were identical twins born to a Caribbean couple in 1963. The family moved to Haverford, West Wales, shortly after the children's birth. From the time they learned to speak, June and Jennifer had a particular high-speed patois that made it difficult for people to understand them. Being the only black children at their school, they were frequently bullied by their peers. The bullying led to their special language becoming even more irregular, to the point where no one could understand what they said. At 14, they were sent to separate boarding schools to encourage them to thrive on their own. Both girls became catatonic and were quickly reunited. Following their reunion, they spent several years locked in their room, playing with dolls, putting on operas for one another, and writing. They wrote several short stories that they self-published. The stories tend to revolve around criminality and sex. After the stories failed to garner any attention, they left the confines of their room and started living in the real world. They continued to speak with no one but each other. They started committing crimes such as arson, theft, and assaulting one another. A judge ruled that they need to be committed, and they were sent to Broadmoor Hospital, where they remained for 14 years. In 1993, it was decided that the twins would be transferred to Coswell Clinic, a lower security facility. When the twins arrived at Coswell, Jennifer was found to be unresponsive. She was rushed to the hospital but later pronounced dead. The cause of death was acute myocarditis or a sudden inflammation of the heart. No drugs or poisons were found in her system. A few days after Jennifer's death, June was reported to say, "I'm free at last, liberated, and at last Jennifer has given up her life for me." June immediately began speaking to others and integrating into society. She was released from the mental hospital and from then on lived, and continues to live, a so-called normal life. The central question of the strange silent twins remains: what exactly happened to Jennifer Gibbons? Did she commit suicide? Did June murder her? Was she coerced into suicide? How did she commit it? The answer most likely lies in the psychology of the twins' relationship. Although clearly codependent, they also had a relationship filled with animosity. June, the firstborn of the two, wrote of her sister, "Nobody suffers the way I do, not with a sister, with a husband, yes, with a wife, yes, with a child, yes, but this sister of mine, a dark shadow robbing me of sunlight, is my one and only torment." Jennifer considered her older sister June to be her superior in every way. June knew this and wrote, "She wants us to be equal. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal. Someone is driving her insane. It is me." For her part, Jennifer wrote of her sister, "We have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. We feel the irritating deadly rays come out of our bodies, stinging each other's skin. I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible. Without my shadow, would I die? Without my shadow, would I gain life, be free or left to die? Without my shadow, which I identify with a face of misery, deception, murder." Whatever the true nature of their relationship, it seems June at least has found peace. On Jennifer's gravestone is a poem that June wrote for her. It reads, "We once were two, we two made one, we no more two, through life be one, rest in peace."
It is extremely creepy. Also quite sad, I think. I can't help but wonder if a lot of their problems could have been avoided if professionals had helped them with their social problems and helped them learn to be independent of one another.
It's surprising enough to hear that someone who has been isolated from society and lived in a mental institution for 14 years could be released and integrate into the outside world so quickly. That not even getting into the strangeness of the twin relationship. This case is so bizarre.
The book written on the case is incredibly fascinating. I've read it numerous times. There was a British TV documentary on the sisters in the late 90s which I had on video but have never been able to track down since. Something I always remember is their eerie tape-recorded version of Bohemian Rhapsody which is played in the documentary. June seemed so happy at the end. Always surprised this hasn't been turned into a movie apart from the one made in the 80s, incredibly eerie and sad. One story that sticks out from the book was when they took taxis to get off their council estate and the taxi driver said they didn't say a word but he felt they were mocking him. And when he dropped them off they stood statues still on the side of the road until he couldn't see them anymore. Such a strong will of mind.
This is so eerie to me because I actually have some distant cousins who are like this. They're twins who didn't speak or really make eye contact to anyone, ever, but each other and occasionally their parents, and then only in private. At the recommendation of a therapist, their parents secretly tape-recorded them, and it seemed that one twin was basically controlling the other in a twisted dominant/submissive relationship. They found out about the recording and stopped speaking to their parents as well.
I've read about this case before, really strange. I think I read somewhere that they made a pact that whoever does first has to live a normal life from now on.
This sort of reminds me of the relationship between the Siamese twins in American Horror Story, Freak Show. One was definitely the more dominant one and called the shots, while the other was kinder and more meek.
Wow, this is really sad. I've never heard of anything like this before. I didn't know folie à deux could work in an opposite way as well, if that's kind of what this is. I have nothing useful to add, just that this is sad and bizarre.
If there were any Manic Street Preachers fans in here, or, I know there are, just not how many, June Gibbons wrote the poem used in the background of the Tsunami video. The lyrics of Tsunami are most probably a mix between their story and Nicky Wire's feelings about Richie Edwards disappearing 3 years prior.
Is sexual abuse a possibility? Either from one of the sisters to the other or from others to the sisters.
So, what's your theory on what happened? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.